Boston, the winningest sports city this century. Each championship deriving from a plan. Join us as we discuss the next Boston Banner Blueprint with your hosts, Josh Finkel, Nick Walsh, and Nate Philbrook.
What's up, everybody, and welcome into the Boston Banner Blueprint podcast for an emergency episode. I am here with Nick on Sunday night with Boston sports media absolutely blowing up. Before we kick things off, go ahead and follow us on all of our socials at Boston Banner BP on Twitter/X, Boston Banner Blueprint on both Facebook and Instagram, Boston.banner.blu on TikTok, and then Boston Banner Blueprint on YouTube, Apple, and Spotify. Go like, subscribe, rate 5 stars, and share with your friends and family. That was probably the quickest I've ever gone through the socials, but we have a lot to get to and not a lot of time to do it. So, Nick, Rafael Devers is officially a member of the San Francisco Giants as we sit here on June the 15th after a series sweep, which was probably going to be the biggest Red Sox news of the weekend until this dropped. We just sweep the Yankees. Vibes are high. They traded arguably the best player on the team to the West Coast. Initial reactions and go.
Initial reaction, shocked. Mostly because of the timing. Like, I think I've been the one mainstay on our program since the dawn of this program, where I said during spring training that the Rafael Devers situation is not something is going to blow over lightly, and not to toot my own horn. It played out exactly. I shouldn't say exactly, because I didn't think he was going to get traded on June 15th. But I mean, the relationship deteriorated so far. And we can take issue or not. We can throw the blame of why the relationship deteriorated between the organization and Devers. But one thing that we can't debate tonight, Craig Breslow put his job on the line. This is a career alternate move. This is basically putting your balls on the table and going with what you believe. And on one hand, I applaud Breslow in that sense that he had the balls to do this. Now, I'm going to hold off and saying he had the brains to do this, to see how this actually plays out and what the next step is from here. But as of right now, shocked.
Yeah, and so, I think both of our heads are kind of swirling here. And so in an effort to try and keep things as organized as possible, I first want to just highlight what exactly the trade was, and then move into a point that you just made about Breslow. So first and foremost, former third baseman, current DH Rafael Devers was traded to the San Francisco Giants for left-handed pitcher Kyle Harrison, 23-year-old stud, absolute flamethrower Jordan Hicks, and then 2 minor league ball players, first base / outfielder James Tibbs III, and minor league right-handed pitcher Jose Bayo, another Bayo in the system. Devers goes out to San Francisco as Matt Chapman hits the IL, and so it's likely that he slots right back into playing third base on a daily basis until Matt Chapman comes back, and then it gets to be a reckoning time for him again in San Francisco, as they probably will move him off of third base once Chapman comes back again. So we'll see how that whole situation unfolds. But one thing you just mentioned about Craig Breslow is he put his job on the line. If there is one thing that we can say about general managers or president of whatever operations or whatever the title is across sports, right, is you never want them to be reacting to somebody else's agenda. They always are, not always, because there's a lot of GM / president of baseball or whatever their job title is, decision makers that are making decisions because the owner is telling them to. I mean, you look in, you were just talking off air about, Dallas Mavericks trading Luka Doncic this past this past season. You look at some of the other things, the influence that Jerry Jones has over the roster as GM in Dallas for the Cowboys. You look at some of these decision makers that are heavily influenced by outside noise, and ultimately, it's who's to blame. As you mentioned, Craig Breslow put his job squarely on the table and said, I'm going to run this organization the way that I feel as though is best for the Boston Red Sox. Rafael Devers has time and time again not done what's in best interest of the Boston Red Sox, and therefore he is not a fit for our long-term plan. I am not the one that assigned him to that long-term deal, and therefore I'm going to relieve the Red Sox of any future handcuffs of that contract to $30 million to a disgruntled DH. We've said on this podcast that, and I've said verbatim, see ya, Rafi. If you're not going to buy in, then ship out. And so, I do think an underrated aspect of this trade is the Kyle Harrison aspect of this. Now, he was just optioned to AAA. He's 23 years old, but he's a big southpaw. And if you are looking for that young starting pitcher caliber, potentially front of the line arm to match with Garrett Crochet, Kyle Harrison could very, very easily fill that role. This is a guy that I think has the highest ceiling amongst behind Crochet, obviously, of current Red Sox pitchers. Go ahead.
Yeah. And a good part about Kyle Harrison that hasn't really got brought up by us yet, but it's starting to make the rounds on Twitter. He's been in the Giants system since 2020. Andrew Bailey was the pitching coach from 2020 to 2023. He knows this guy pretty well. And we can debate back and forth if Bailey has done his job well enough as pitching coach the last year and a half. But you're bringing in a guy that you're hoping there's some institutional knowledge there with the coaching staff already. And it's already been reported he's been optioned down to Worcester to start, which makes sense. Like, you got enough arms in the rotation right now as of this moment. The last 2 weeks, the pitching rotation has done its job and then some. 8 and a third from Crochet Friday night, 6 from Dobbins Saturday, 7 from Bayo today. And the last 2 times around the rotation, you see what this team's potential is when the starting rotation, besides Crochet, gives you some depth. So having Harrison down in Worcester right now, it's not going to go over greatly with Red Sox fans, obviously. But, I mean, the one thing Breslow has said from his introduction presser is he wants to build a revolving door of pitching in this organization, which we have lacked for generations. So how do you do that? You draft, you trade, you sign guys to bring in. And Kyle Harrison, I know he's 23 right now. He's still young. You get him up here eventually. I'm excited to see that piece of it.
Yeah, and before we get too far away from the package, the return that we just got for Rafael Devers, they made a trade earlier this week for Alcala to enter into the bullpen. They also, just added Jordan Hicks, which for those that don't remember the name Jordan Hicks from when he was in St. Louis, I mean, this is a guy that hit 105 on the gun. And so now you have Chapman and Hicks. Now Hicks transitioned for a brief time into a starting position or starting pitching role, but I think it's probably pretty easy to translate him back to the bullpen. And then you have 2 absolute flamethrowers, swing and miss in the zone guys, one from the left-handed side, one from the right-handed side, to be able to attack hitters late in games. But that really wasn't the point that I wanted to bring up. Nick, who was part of the Garrett Crochet trade?
Kyle Teal.
Yep. Who was that? Who else?
Braden Montgomery.
Braden Montgomery was in the 2024 MLB draft. The Red Sox selected him number 12. Who did we just get in the return
Tibbs
for Rafael Devers? Yes, James Tibbs III. He was selected 13th immediately after Braden Montgomery. Who did we just fill the role that we traded Braden Montgomery away with? James Tibbs.
Bing.
So, this is a move that I think it's again, to your point, we're filling the pipeline. We were talking, as this news was breaking, which I don't know. I don't know what it is. And I think I said this as soon as that you and I started speaking, and this news was breaking. But you called me while I was grocery shopping at Walmart, and I was literally at the exact same Walmart as when you called me to tell me that Chris Sale was being traded from the Red Sox 2 years ago. And so I don't know that I can continue to shop at that Walmart if this trade goes similarly to the Chris Sale trade. But that's neither here nor there.
All I can say is, not to cross sports, but when the NHL offseason starts to ramp up, don't go to that Walmart because David Pastrnak might be the next one to go out of the city.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. But all that to say this is a major move that really can define the Red Sox for the next 1, 3, 5, 10 years down the line. We've talked about these prospects at nauseum. I mean, obviously this is the Banner blueprint. So we're heavy prospect and outlook focused podcast. However, when we're talking about these things, and now these guys are here, right? We have this young core here. The influence that they are going to get in the clubhouse and on the field this season will help shape the way that they are able to show up for the team for the next decade. And so that's where I think removing a guy like Devers that came in, he seemed entitled, he seemed selfish, and he seemed unwilling to do what is best for the team. Yeah, let's go ahead and get that influence out of the clubhouse while this next wave of superstars hopefully is coming through Boston.
And you touched on with the young guys and the culture, like you see on Twitter already that people are comparing this to the Mookie Betts trade. It's a more of a comparison to the Adrian Gonzalez, Josh Beckett, Carl Crawford trade of 2012, where that
and Nick Punto,
let's not forget about that. But where that next wave of your young Red Sox core that helped with the 2013 World Series, but more importantly, it was the core of 2018 was on the horizon. You had Xander coming up. You had Vasquez coming up. JBJ was coming up. You had Mookie Betts coming up in a couple of years. You foresaw that, and you knew the cancer that you had in the clubhouse with Beckett, Crawford, Gonzalez. And you had a team there ready to swallow the money and kind of give you a reboot, a reset, and let these young guys come up. Like, how much, let's not play revisionist history, but Xander Bogaerts was by far our clubhouse leader come 2018 and on. He was our vet. How much different would that have been if he didn't come up with the Mike Napoli's, the Shane Victorinos, the David Ortiz's, and instead he came up with Adrian Gonzalez, Carl Crawford, Josh Beckett? How much would his leadership have been different, his exposure to big league baseball? Like, Rafael Devers as a person, I'm sure is a great guy, but as a teammate, he was nothing but selfish this year. And when you got, it's been for the last 5 years that the Red Sox were building for these kids. Well, the kids are here, and you got to do what's best for the kids if that's what the last 5 years was all about. And hate it or not, I know it's hard when Rafi Devers was your best player, but tonight the Sox put the money where their mouths were and did what's best for the kids.
Yeah, without question. And obviously, the timing is really odd coming off the sweep of the Yankees and finally, getting hot and officially being, they were at a playoff position, if I'm not tied for a wild card spot, if I'm not mistaken.
They're tied.
So with a bunch of teams and it's June. So who really cares about that? But, when we're talking about these things, and before we get too far into the outlook, I want to pose you a question here because I think it is worth mentioning. Of Buster Olney's talking about that Rafael Devers was not shopped around the league. Whether or not I believe that, I don't really know yet. If that's true, I don't necessarily think that's Breslow putting the Red Sox in the best position possible.
If that's true, that's a fireball offense. Like, I'll
Completely
say
agree.
that.
So to this point of, would you have rather the Red Sox operate as a massive market team and retain some contract to increase the value of the return? Or are you okay that they were able to offload the entirety of the contract for then a lesser package in return?
This isn't going to help our content, but I'm going to say it all depends what the next step is. Because if
In a
you
vacuum, just
in a
try and
vacuum,
look at it in a
oh,
vacuum.
in a vacuum, yeah, you want the best return possible. We've said on this podcast many times, it's not our money. So, yes, in a vacuum, yes, you would want them to eat some money to get the best possible players in return. But if you tell me now the money that they're saving, and I saw something, they went from 8 million over the first threshold of the CBT to 9 million under. So you're not going to have that repeater tax if you stay there. You get to the off season and say Bregman opts out, and you actually re-sign Bregman to an actual legit multi-year deal without these loophole options, and you go out and all of a sudden you drop money on Kyle Tucker, who's going to be the star of the free agency. Like, if that's the play, and it's like, in order to do that, you want to get under the CBT to offset a year for any repeater penalties. Okay, that's chess, not checkers. You're thinking 3, 4, 5 steps ahead if you're Craig Breslow. So in that sense, yeah, we're past the 5-minute mark for YouTube. So fuck the prospects that you would get back. But that all depends on what happens next. Like, if nothing comes next and it's more of the same shit show of the last 5 years, then yeah, it's very fair to criticize the return and how they handled this. Absolutely, 100%. I know Finkel's not on tonight, but we know he's our program's big Rafi believer. If he wants to come back in next February after the offseason and say, screw the return because we did nothing with it, absolutely 100% fair, and you won't hear me criticize that.
Completely justified.
Absolutely. But as right now, as this moment, this is more closer to a Nomar trade, a Manny trade, the Adrian Gonzalez trade than it is the Mookie trade. The Mookie trade was simply financial, like 100% financially motivated. This seems like removing the mole from the clubhouse. Like, Nomar Garciaparra was the fan favorite. He was the Rafael Devers of our age group growing up. The day they traded him, Grant, we didn't have social media back then. You had to get that weekly's Sports Illustrated or the next day's Boston Globe, turn on whatever Nesson show was that night to get Red Sox news and get opinions. But we didn't find out probably until last October when that 20-year anniversary Netflix documentary dropped of how much that clubhouse hated Nomar. And the moment they traded him, how much they took off. Now, I'm not saying this is the 2004 Red Sox and they're about to go win 22 of 25 and go on this historic run, because you don't have the talent anywhere near that 2014. But one thing I do know is you have a lot more potential than what you had been showing this season. Now, can they go and meet their expectations, where I think we said prior to the season was 85 to 87 wins? Can you get to that? Because right now they were at up until this last home stretch, they were at a 78, 79 win pace. Now you're back to 500. So you're below expectations of what we thought, below your potential. Does this actually, in retrospect, when we look back at the end of September, where talent-wise your team got worse, purely, like, that's indisputable. Talent level, you got worse. But as a team, did they get better? And we won't know that until later on.
Well, and to your point, I think that you were leading that train to where I wanted to go there. Of short term, it does make things a lot more flexible, and you can start to see the puzzle pieces come together, right? Of When the Red Sox go to San Francisco on Friday, which
that's going to be must-watch TV.
That's not going to be talked about enough. So the Red Sox are in San Francisco on Friday, and that is the first day that Wilyer Abreu is eligible to return from IL. And so then it becomes very, very clear of some semblance of outfield of Jarren Duran, Wilyer Abreu, Ceddanne Rafaela, and a DH spot of Roman Anthony. It makes much more sense. Now, another guy that hasn't been talked about a whole heck of a lot, and he has been banished so far this year, is Masataka Yoshida, right? And so he certainly is not the same hitter of Rafael Devers. Nobody on this team is the same hitter, and there's very, very few hitters in the entire league that are the same hitter or caliber of hitter of Rafael Devers. Let's be very clear about that. However, when we look at the holes that this team currently has, they're still striking out too much. They're still not hitting well with runners in scoring position. They're still not just consistently getting on base. And that's something that Masataka Yoshida does really well. And then you add a guy like Bregman back into the fold too, right? And so that's when, yes, immediately in a vacuum, removing a hitter of that caliber, your team gets worse. Financially, you're looking a lot better. And then the way that the puzzle pieces are going to come together looks a lot better. And again, if you can get the positive leadership in there, that is going to help mold these young players into the superstars that Boston hopefully will groom them into, then it's pretty easy to see you're never going to win a trade like this, but the ripple effects could be felt in a positive manner for years and years to come. And as the Banner blueprint, I think that that's really important to note, that this could set the Boston Red Sox up for years and years to come. And you heard me say it a couple of weeks ago, and I've actually asked PT to go back and clip that so that we can update that here on our socials, because we were talking about the return. We were talking about shipping Rafi out of town because of the return could reshape this franchise. And I think that's where we're at. Right.
And but we both can agree that we did not think shipping him out of town was a June 15th timeline.
I thought that was probably more of a January 15th thing.
Right. Mm-hmm. Like how much of a cancer in that clubhouse did he have to be to get to the point where, you know what, Father's Day weekend, see ya.
Well, and here's this thing too, is once he comes out, and there's been reports that he wanted out of Boston.
Yeah.
Right. And so once he comes out and says, yeah, I've requested a trade, Red Sox leverage goes way down, particularly if you're looking for somebody to then take up the $250 million. And so this very well could have been something that came together rather quickly to avoid that being backed into a corner of having to, trade a lesser commodity because of his attitude and his desire to leave, that other teams have you more over a barrel.
Right. And now I'm just spitballing here, and I want to get your reaction to this idea, because about a month ago, the infamous John Henry trip to Kansas City, where we all thought he was there to bitch out Rafi. And because all of a sudden, from that moment on, Rafi took off hitting wise and has been on another planet. We thought, well, John Henry basically slapped him around and said, get your shit together because we need you and I'm paying you $313 million. Could it have really been at that point where John Henry said, if you start performing, then we'll trade you. We need to get your trade value back up. And that was the motivation for Rafi to get hitting because Rafi wanted out. Could we have all had it backwards of what that meeting was?
You certainly, you look at some of the other comments, right? I mean, we just had Sam Kennedy just this past week say, if we really need Rafi, we know that he'll be there. And so now the fact that he didn't elaborate on that, I mean, maybe he was talking about, the fact that Devers was forcing the issue more than maybe it was being reported. But I'll ask a different question back to you, because do you see this as a positive or negative thing for, potential future contracts with the Red Sox of all right, there we go.
Hey, here we go. We got a third voice on now.
Yes, we do. We got PT in the building. Welcome in.
What's up, fellas?
Thank you for joining Turn off their own banner. There we go. So let me get this thought out. Let me ask this question out to both of you for future contracts, right? Of future free agents or signing some of our prospects to longer term deals. Do you feel as though this trade is a positive or negative thing in the fact that, number one, we just committed all of this money to him just a couple of years ago, right? However, we did him a solid if he's going to a organization that is in win now mode and they are one game out of first place in a very, very competitive NL West. And he immediately goes in to play for third base. Right. So we didn't ship him off to the Miami Marlins or the Pittsburgh Pirates, which, oh man, if we could have built some package to ship Rafael Devers to Pittsburgh for Jared Jones or I mean, Paul Skeens, yeah, but I don't even think that's even plausible, right?
It's not possible.
So my question persists of, do you think this is a positive or a negative thing going forward? The fact that we did him well by sending him to a good organization that is in win now mode and he gets to play third base immediately, or the fact that we just committed this money to him and then immediately shipped him out the door as a negative? Nick, I'll go to you first, and then PT, I want you to catch up to where we're at in the conversation.
I kind of think it's more of an indifferent thing because at the end of the day, you pay the most money, more than likely players will come. But also knowing that it wasn't Craig that handed out this contract, as you alluded to earlier, like that also has to be taken into account with players coming in where it's like, yeah, he traded Rafi away, but he also wasn't the one who gave out that contract. So it's not like he's trading away his guys.
Right.
Like, so that's why I kind of think I'm just using Roman Anthony as an example. Like, if we wanted to sign Roman Anthony to an extension this winter and he looks at him, it's like, I'm going to hold off for now because I'm not sure. Is it possible? Yeah, anything's possible. But if you throw money around, at the end of the day, money talks. And we saw David Price hate Boston, but you give him $217 million over 7 years, and it's like, yeah, I'll come. Like,
we saw Stephon Diggs hate New England, and look where he is. So, PT, same question to you.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. That's something I thought of when this happened as well, is what the perception would be of this. And I don't want to stay in the middle, but I kind of agree with Nick. But I'll go with one side on this. I do think it is a negative. And the reason being is, let's just say we have a free agent out there and it's coming down to the last 2 teams and we're one of them. And they look at this and maybe they want to have, they want to settle down in Boston. They want to have a family and they want to be here in the long term. And they see a guy like Rafael Devers who just got shipped off. Basically, can be traded now. And to me, that would be something scary as a free agent trying to commit here and wanting to stay here long term. So I think overall it's a negative.
Yeah, and something I actually just thought of as you were saying that too is he's a big, relatively homebody, right? Dominicana, he's there as much as he can be, and there's really only one other team that could be farther away from the Dominican Republic in the major leagues than San Francisco, and that would be Seattle. I mean, I don't want to say that was part of the decision, but it probably could have been. Yes, no, maybe.
Can I bring up one thing just simply because you kind of cross sports and I want to get this point out there when you mentioned Stephon Diggs? Can we all agree that we're all excited about how Mike Vrabel is running things in New England? Can we all universally, all 3 of us say we're excited how Mike
absolutely.
What was Mike Vrabel's main talking points in his first press conference being introduced as a head coach?
He wants people that want to be here.
That, and he was going to remove entitlement from the locker room. So Craig Breslow did that tonight. So if we're excited about Mike Vrabel doing it, I don't think taking Craig Breslow and raking him over the coals tonight is also justified. I understand from a fan perspective, you're trading away the face of the franchise, trading away a fan favorite. I get it. I understand it, and I don't blame you if you feel that way. But also taking a step back and looking how we got to this moment. At this moment right now, the relationship was unfixable. If you want to go back to December and say, screw Craig Breslow for how he handled the communication that started this in motion, fair. I understand it, and that's where you should go. But from tonight only, in a vacuum, Craig Breslow should not get raked over the coals.
PT, I want to give you a chance to get some of your thoughts out because our listeners have been listening to Nick and I go back and forth. So let me hear where your head is at as the immediate aftermath of this trade.
Yeah. So obviously, after coming off the sweep of the Yankees, I felt like right now we're at an all-time high. As like for this season, I felt like the run that I was talking about in June, it started. Rafi obviously having a huge home run in that game. And I was just dropping off my buddy from Cooperstown. We just pulled up to his house, and he goes to me, Rafi Devers just got traded. And I thought it was a joke. Seriously, I really did think it was a joke, just because of the timing. Like, this didn't feel like the time that Rafi would have gotten traded. And he goes, he's a Giant, and I'm like, and I'm picturing him in a Giants uniform. That just looks wrong to me. And as Nick said, I am hurt. Like, as a fan, I love Rafi. And he's been here for the World Series. He's won with us. He's been a great player. Obviously, he's kind of a diva, and he has his negative personality traits that go along with that. I don't care. I honestly don't care. I wanted him here. I don't think the haul we got back was enough. I don't know if you guys have already talked about that on this bit, but I just don't think it was enough.
Yeah, we debated on whether or not it was better to retain some contract for an improved package in return, or completely, rid ourselves of the contract for a lesser return, like we ultimately saw. But one thing that Nick just talked about too is that he's the face of the franchise, and to John Henry's point, right? You sign him to a $330 million contract to be the face of the franchise. He's had said many, many times that he does not want to be the face of the franchise. He's proven that he was not willing to do the things that needed to be the face of the franchise, talk to the media, be the forward-facing guy, lead by example, so on and so forth. And so, yeah, ship him out of town. I think that's kind of a unique perspective that Nick and I have brought to this episode tonight. Is Tony, I think that you're in the majority. I think a lot of New England is pretty upset right now that he got shipped out, and I certainly don't share that sentiment. Back from 2016, 17, when I was with the Sea Dogs and he was in AA, he just wasn't the player that I wanted to build around. So I see your finger there, PT. Let me go to you.
Yeah, you're just saying how I'm definitely not in the minority with this taken, as for sure. My buddy, I won't drop any names, but he's a Newton cop, and he sent me a text message that he just got from his chief, that they needed 4 cops for a detail at Craig's house because of all the threats he's been getting today. So, and obviously that's completely wrong. It should never go to that, but that just shows what Rafi meant to this fan base, I think. And what we got in return, I think the fans are honestly upset right now. I know Finkel's upset. That's for sure.
Yeah, and our listeners are certainly being deprived of that reaction, and I'm sure we will get it at some point. I think it's a pretty kind of a good opportunity for him to hit the brakes on his reaction, because he's certainly going to be the most reactionary out of the three of us. So, but yeah, to that point, it's still a game, right? People, and they didn't kill him. Rafael Devers we're talking about. They traded him to another team. It's gonna be okay, guys. Like, for all of our listeners that this is gonna be coming out after the fact, but like, never stoop to the level of calling the players these derogatory, disgusting names that we've heard in the past, or threatening somebody's safety. It is a game. It is their job. This is a business. They make money. They're still another human being. They ought to be treated like another human being. And so, obviously we don't have to tell the Banner Blueprint gang that they all know that already, but that's something that ought to be said.
Absolutely. Like, you saw Craig's address get posted on social media. Like, there's being a fan and there's being psychotic. Don't be psychotic. Like, it's not like, we're all passionate about the teams, all four of them. 100%. We live and die. I was curled up in the fetal position crying tears of joy during 28-3. Like, you can be passionate.
both.
Yeah, exactly. Like, but there's a fine line there. And tonight, any Red Sox fan that made personal threats, shared the address, did any of that, shame on you. And I know we don't speak for all of Boston fans, but I'm speaking for the majority of them. I'm taking this opportunity to say we don't condone it. We don't advocate for it. And the ones that did it, shame on you.
Yeah, so we were hoping to keep this emergency podcast relatively short. And obviously, PT, you just jumped on, so I want to give you an opportunity of any other final thoughts that are top of mind for you as we are strictly talking about Rafael Devers and his trade to San Francisco tonight.
Yeah, I'll just conclude with one thing that my buddy actually sent me right when this happened. And I'm not a soccer fan. I don't follow what they do. But he had mentioned that the John Henry, he paid $200 million for Florian Wirtz, I think his name. I might be butchering that, for a soccer team. And he just said it feels like he got off the Rafi contract to pay this guy. And if that's the case, oh man, that makes me so mad. Like that's infuriating. I don't know what the truth is to that, but I could see the correlation there.
Nick, any? I have one question to pose to you all before we move into true closing thoughts. But anything else that you want to throw out there?
My final thoughts are that yes, the talent took a hit tonight for the rest of this season, but I'm also really excited to see these young kids now mature into their roles. When Bregman comes back, Bregman's going to have to be your leader in the clubhouse, which I think we're all in agreement that he is as good of a leader as you could get in terms of a guy that's been there, done that, and up until the injury was showing it on the field as well. And if that's the guy that these younger kids are going to look up to now and be the ones, he's going to be the one that holds the young kids accountable and teach them, that's a win in itself. So that's anyone that's throwing away their jerseys tonight and refusing to watch for the rest of the year. I get the reaction. I get being upset, but don't give up on this 2025 team yet because there's still a lot to watch for.
Nate,
Agreed.
before you
PT,
do your
go ahead.
final thought, I just want to ask a really quick question. Do you feel that the vibes are better now after this trade or worse for this team?
From the
fan
clubhouse
base
perspective?
Your perspective, personally. How do you feel like when you heard about this trade? Obviously, I felt like an extreme high after sweeping the Yankees. All right, I felt like I really did. It felt amazing. And then this trade happened. I was the opposite. I feel low on after this. How do you guys feel?
Nick, you go ahead.
I think I'm still a little numb to it because it's just a complete shock. Like, I agree. I shared your sentiment today. That last strikeout, I did a fist pump. I jumped out of my chair. Like, they won 7 of 8. I said earlier before you got on, like, the last 2 weeks, the last 2 times around the rotation, you see what this team's potential is when the rotation outside of Crochet gives you some depth. So you said all-time high for this season earlier. I agree with that. This trade is definitely a shock to the nervous system where it's like, holy shit. But in the same boat with Nate, where I'm kind of in the minority here, where I was one of the fans that was sick of Rafi's attitude, and I thought it was more about me instead of more about the team. And we can debate that, I know. But what I do know is the Sox for the last 5 years were telling us that the future is about these kids, about the kids, about the kids, about the kids. And tonight they put the money where their mouths were and did what was the best thing for the kids. Maybe not the best thing for the 2025 Red Sox, but the best thing for the 2026 and moving forward Red Sox. So, yeah, did my vibes for 2025 take a hit? Maybe. But my vibes for the overall organization certainly did not.
Yeah, and PT, I think that's actually a perfect question to segue into my final thought. So I appreciate you asking it and asking it in that way. So first and foremost, my vibes are actually high. Reason being is I've been the guy that says, don't give up on this team yet. Don't give up on this team yet, right? Several podcasts in a row now, I've said, don't give up on this team yet. And we've hit quite a stride of late. Now, even while hitting this stride, do I think the removal of Rafael Devers takes their chances of making the playoffs and moves them down? Sure. Anytime you remove a player of Rafi's caliber from the roster, it's going to. However, to Nick's point, and as we mentioned earlier in this episode, this is such a foundational building year with this core young group of players. And I want the positive mindset and influence as much as possible with this group of players. The Alex Bregmans of the world, get Alex Cora out of the middleman role and back to being just a true manager and leader role. Not to mention, I mean, hey, the 2017 Astros led by Alex Cora and Alex Bregman being creative with some rules, where they were pretty good. So if they can bring some of that creativity to Boston, as a Patriots fan, we're all a little bit of if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying type deal. So not to advocate for that, of course, but my question for you all, and I'm going to answer it first, and then I'm going to throw it to you, Nick, of what would you like to see the Red Sox do next with this either cash savings or roster flexibility? First and foremost, for me, I want to hit the negotiation tables right now with Alex Bregman. I want to see him agree to a contract extension that takes the opt-out at the end of the season off the table, so he can move into that face of the franchise role and be that true leader of this core group of players for years and years to come. I would love to see them hit that negotiation table right now, as well as the potential of locking up Roman Anthony and Marcelo Meyer long term to not a chance we get them to a Christian Campbell deal, but something in that framework of 8+ years to be able to truly see the framework of this blueprint being built out. So, Nick, what would you like to see the Red Sox do next?
I think you hit everything I would have wanted. To just save time and not reiterate everything that you just said, but I'm going to take it a step further, and you get to this offseason and you make a move for a Kyle Tucker, or you go big game hunting and you get that big bat back in your lineup you're missing from Rafael Devers. And Kyle Tucker was part of that winning culture in the Astros as well. So that helps the young kids even more. And yes, I know it's another left-handed bat, and we got a vast majority of those. I get it. But you go out big game hunting for a Kyle Tucker as well and getting under this CBT for right now, and you avoid that repeater penalty at least for a year. I would love to see that. And then at that point, like I said earlier, fuck the return for Rafi, because Kyle Tucker would be your replacement, and I can live with that.
Yeah, Tony, same question to you.
I think that's a great question, and I'll be honest with you. I've been so mad, and I've been seeing red. I haven't even thought about that. That hasn't even crossed my mind. But I'll give the cop out answer. I 100% agree with the Bregman. You have to extend Bregman. Excellent leader, excellent player. Develop the young guys with him. Get Bregman back.
Yep. So we promised a quick episode, and we still gave you guys a full episode. So thank you all for listening in to this point. Any final thoughts from you all? Going once.
I'll just say, because you stole my new job at the beginning of the podcast, I'll take my new job back. You can find us on Twitter /X at Boston Banner BP, Facebook, Instagram, Boston Banner Blueprint, TikTok, Boston .banner.blu, and YouTube, Spotify, Apple, Boston Banner Blueprint. And unlike Rafael Devers, we will not be in San Francisco.
Thank you all for listening. Peace out.